The title of this talk is The Rapid Growth of Android Market in China, the Challenges and Opportunities for Western Developers. Our speaker this afternoon is Gary Chang, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of North America for RenRen. His presentation is coming up. Gary has a long and glorious history with a resume that is as long as your arm. He's worked at Mixamo, EA, Winking Shanda. He was co-founder of Zona. He's been around the business for about 20 years or more, depending on who you ask, and is generally an expert on China. So while we had a good look into the Korean market with the last talk from Kakao, this is a look at the Chinese market and what's going on there. So with that, I give you Gary Chang.
Thank you, Zach. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start by asking a question. How many of you have gone to China, have been to China before? Wow, almost 2/3, maybe 70% of them. So I want to introduce you to the Android market in China, which is what I consider the emerging market, but it's also the best kept secret in the world. For those who has been to China, I'm sure you find China is dramatically different from the rest of the world. With that said, I'd like to spend maybe like 30 seconds briefly introduce you about our company, RenRen Games. So RenRen, as you know, is usually known as Facebook of China because we provide the Facebook like SNS in China where Facebook as well as Google and Google Play or YouTube are banned or regulated in China. So RenRen has about 300 million registered users, about 180 million monthly active users. And that number, I think, is a lot lower than Facebook, but yet it's still one of the largest in China and also for the rest of the world. We have been publishing and developing games as well as opening our SNS platform just like Facebook since 2006. In the past 2 years, we have transitioned from social, Facebook-like web games to mobile, and we have been developing and publishing mobile games since then. As of today, we have 16 in-house developed, mobile titles and 30 others from the third party. Starting late last year, we again shifted our focus to Android, and so far we have been launching more than 10 games on Android platform as well. And we also opened up our platform to invite third-party developers to publish their games on the China Android RenRen platform. So with that said, I want to start with my presentation. I remember 20 years ago when I first came to the States, and my English teacher taught me when you go to US, when you try to order drinks or when you try to buy clothes, always get one size smaller. There's an Asian version and there's a US version. So if you think that you're extra large in Asia, in US you should get medium or at most large because everything in US is big. And then I went to Japan. They told me, hey, the easiest way to convert the money currency is by subtracting 2 zeros at the end of whatever is being priced in Japanese yen, and then that's the US dollars. And then when I went to China in 2003, and I stayed there, I lived there for about 7 years, I learned one thing. Everything, especially when it comes to number in China, just add a zero to the end. If you think that you have a game with 500,000, 500K concurrent users, that's big or the largest in US or Korea or anywhere in the world. When it comes to China, add another zero to it. So that's how big the market is. That's the population, in the world. So according to the MIIT China, there's over 1.1 billion mobile phone users, subscribers in China. About 325 million of them are 3G subscribers, meaning that they are not using the conventional, feature phone because they have the 3G data service. 4G LTE is not quite popular there yet. I don't think it's available, but they should catch up pretty soon. There's about 100 million 3G subscribers, every year, and that's 20 million, more than the U.S. population. 3G subscriber in China is growing very, very fast. Last year, we added 86 million subscribers. That's kind of important for a smartphone with a proper data plan that you can actually access a lot of internet applications on that, especially for games. Now, China is the world's largest smartphone market. So Flurry reported back in February this year, the number of smartphone activated in China, surpassed U.S. to become the number one, in the world. Most of the growth came from the low-end Android devices, as you know. China is one of the very first few countries that adopted the iOS, the Apple devices. Back in 2009 and 10, there's been millions of devices sold in U.S., but there were also millions of iPhones being smuggled, through the gray market into China before it was officially, sold in that market. Now the growth is tremendous, but it's mostly on Android low end, as opposed to the luxury, Apple brand, in China. Even though all the phones are made in China there. According to the Premier Global Market, IDC predicted there will be over 500 million, half a billion smartphones, in China by the end of this year. This is somewhat aggressive, but with all the trend indication, it seems like we're hitting that target, pretty soon. It was originally projected for 2014, but I think it will definitely, be accelerated, and then we're looking at achieving half a billion smartphone, devices in China by the end of the year. Now, the next question will be, what about the comparison between iOS and Android? How many of you carries an iPhone here? I see about like 80%. How about Android phone? Equally, 50-50. Well, how about this, both? You carry two phones. All right. So a lot of people I met in China, including the taxi driver, they use a smartphone. And then 9 out of 10, they use Android. There are also people who use a smartphone such as Samsung, or HTC, or some local brand, but they would also purchase an iPad, in addition to that. So there's a lot of people who use both Android and iOS. But when it comes to phone, it seems like the Android phones are more hippie, and then the adoption usually for the most latest release of the model. When Galaxy S4 was released, there was a long line, and then people actually getting that and start showing the people, hey, I got the latest Samsung phone, even though they have to charge the phone twice a day. They're proud of it, I personally love iPhone because I don't have to deal with the battery issue, for at least a day or two. Currently, Android accounts for 70%, of the market. Apple only dominates 25% or less, and that difference is continuing to extend. We expect within 2 years, over 80 or 85%, of the smartphone will be Android based. This is the interesting chart. I really love this chart because, as Zach pointed out, I've been in the gaming industry since 2000. So over the past 13 years, I have witnessed the growth, the rise and the fall, of the console market, and then also the emerging, of the PC online games from Korea, back in 1998, and then all of a sudden it took all these Asian markets by storm, including China. As you can see, the bottom, the red color, they're pertaining to the PC market, which is continue to maintain its own market share, but percentage-wise, they actually are reducing from 36.7%, down to 32%, by year 2013. If you look at the entire chart, the entire global gaming market is growing. So while revenue remains flat, the percentage is actually, declining. The reason is very simple. More and more people are shifting from conventional PC online games, onto the smartphone mobile games. And likewise, the GBA, the Game Boy Advance, or PSP, I think the revenue as well as the usage continue to decline, replaced by the smartphone usage, including both smartphones as well as tablets. Now, what about market in China? This is the revenue, chart comparison year over year between Android and Apple iOS, as well as the feature phone. The feature phone has pretty much, remains flat. And to me, I think that is still overstating. I think feature phone is dying, and there will be very insignificant, market share left, by year 2015. But if you look at Android, it has already caught up, this year, and then surpassing iOS because of the volume, of the handset and the population of Android users. Next year is looking to double, what iOS has, and then by 2015, you're looking at almost 300%, compared to iOS. This is my favorite chart. This is the comparison between the global population, versus the online population, meaning that people have means to access the internet, whether they just want to surf the web, they want to use Facebook, or more, specifically, they're gamers. So the leftmost chart is the population, the general population by countries. As you can see, unsurprisingly, China sticks out as the tallest, which has 1.38, or roughly 1.4 billion population. Now, the middle bar, is the percentage of, is the actual number of internet population. If you look at the second one, NAM, that's North America, I think, and so 350 million, but 275 are accessing the internet already. And the rest of them are probably babies, who can only talk and drink milk at the time. But by the time they reach 2 or 3 years old, they become internet users. But, it will be clearly documented by the time they turn 8. For China, you can see the huge disparity between the population and the internet user, and even more so for the gamers. 180 million out of 1.4 billion populations are active gamers. That is where the potential is. That is the market currently clearly untapped, has a huge potential, with the increase of the disposable income in that country, and the potential gamers population. I think it's a market significant enough, for anyone to ignore. So this is a chart about the mobile gaming, growth in China. So just last quarter, Q1 over Q2, it's 15%, almost 16% growth, and the market exceeded 283 million, for the mobile game revenue. The game is on track to exceed 1.2 billion by the end of this year. This is another segment to look at it, just on the quarter, year-over-year comparison, Q1 compared to Q2 last year. And this is just on the smartphone. We're not including the tablet. Tablets in China, is still dominated by iPads. Android tablets are not, as popular, in the rest of the world, and not to mention gaming. But people spend a lot of money on smartphones, which mostly will be on Android, but when it comes to tablet, iOS is still, winning. Now, the Android ecosystem, this is where the challenge comes. So in China, because Google is banned, so the Android ecosystem is somewhat more complicated than the rest of the world, where you have one Google, maintaining the Google Play Store. So there are 3 major distribution channels for Android games. The first type is the carrier, just like AT&T, Verizon. And there's 3 mobile carriers in China. They each have their own, distribution channel. There's a third-party Android marketplace, like a Google Play alike. Rumor has it there's over 200 app stores, Android app stores in China. So as a gamer, I actually asked the taxi driver, where do you download your app? I said, I don't know. I never dared to try that because if I just download it, it could be a pirated app. It could be an app with Trojan horse, which will not only spit out a lot of spam, advertisement messages, but also potentially steal my credit card information. So that's kind of the risk and opportunity and how chaotic it is in China. There's also OEM channels because it's the country where most of the smartphones are made. The smartphone, manufacturers will bundle, your apps, on their phone when they ship the equipment. Now, here's the challenges for Western developers in China. I was told by the by Casual Connect earlier that there will be subsequent sessions talking about challenges. I'm going to highlight the important things, here for you to start thinking about. And there's other sessions explaining in detail the challenges. First of all, is localization and customization is critical. I think by now, those of you who have attended Casual Connect for the past days or two, you should know localization is not just translation. It has a lot of localized effort that are required to put into your game. Not just the game design, not just the graphic, the art stuff, but also a lot of integration with the platform, the Android, very complicated Android platform. That's part of the localization job as well. Now, complex distribution is not one app store where you just submit your app and then everybody could have easy access to your application. In China, there's many app stores when it comes to Android. And there's many ways that your app will be discovered by the gamers. So it's also, again, a very difficult situation for developers who try to self-publish their own games. There's multiple payment, solutions. Credit card is not popular. There's a lot of, SMS payments or prepaid cards. Sometimes they use bundle credit card payments, but that it's not very popular. Mostly because of the concerns of your credit card identity theft. Now, cost effective for user acquisition, with a required local partnership. To effectively promote your games, to even buy users, you need to have a lot of relationship, in China. Last but not the least, piracy. A lot of parody games, Me Too alike, to confuse the market, the gamers that there's many original games out there. Now, currently, there's over the market of China, it still remains large with all the challenges. There's about 18 titles in China making 1.6 million US dollars monthly, and that's quite significant. That's about the same amount as top 25 grossing, in US App Store. Now, market is flooded with a lot of low-quality Android games because there's a huge demand for quality games, but a lot of gamers they are first-time gamers. They would not be able to tell a good quality game from a bad one. So a lot of bad ones, are flooded there, locally made or imported externally. Android is about to reach explosive growth in China. So that means the real growth phase is coming. It's growing faster than you think. In 2010, the Android paying users about only 20% of iOS. It has gone up 3x. Right now, we're seeing average gaming, payer on Android is about 70% of iOS users. Now, this is probably coming to the final page. This is the top, grossing games in China. And as we mentioned earlier, there's 18 of them reaching 1.6 million. And there's number one game, IMMT actually generated 8 million gross revenue in the month of April. There's many game developers. They're claiming 70% of their revenue come from Android and 30% from iOS. Well, this is the last page. With that said, thank you. Any questions?
We have time for maybe one question, maybe two if we are quick. Any questions? How long has Wolsha MT been on the top grossing chart?
If you want my honest opinion, in China it fluctuates a lot. So you get on top grossing, so you get the attention, of all the gamers. And the question is, how long can you stay on top?
So how long is that? I mean, it's $8 million in revenue a month. That's great, but how long has it been there?
It's been 1 month.
Yeah, I thought so. Any other questions?
So if you're interested in publishing your game in China, and Ren is one of the best choice out there, and feel free to talk to me or my colleagues, on the site about any opportunities.
Please join me in thanking Gary Chang for his time and the wonderful
All
presentation.
right, thank you.
We